Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Motorsport Moshpit podcast. So today we have the actual trio back. Stephen and myself have obviously been carrying the flag while Dan's gone for his little interstate journey to find some milk. Dan, did you actually find some milk?
I did.
Oh, there you go.
I did. I finally found it, I travelled all the way to Wellington purely to find milk, not to watch race cars go around, but I got my 2-litre milk, so we're sorted.
Well, so I don't have to start playing.
Well, that's great
on the
news.
silver spoon anymore.
Speaking of more great news, we have a special guest here today. A man who's arguably got the hardest and most badass sounding name in Australian motorsport, Brock Paine. Welcome to the show.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
So I guess probably the first thing to start with is tell us a little bit about yourself. There might be some people listening to this podcast who might only know you faintly, so
Yeah, so my name's Brock. I'm 23 years old from the Gold Coast region. Been racing pretty much my whole life. Started racing go-karts when I was 4 and just progressed from there. I don't think there's been a year where I haven't raced something since then. So on the, motorsport's quite hard to move your way up, but we're getting there and just doing what we can. But yeah, trying. So did go-karts for about 10 years, so till I was about 15. And then back then, I think you can start with AASA now. You can race earlier, but back when I was coming through, it was CAMS back then, but Motorsport Australia. You could only circuit race on tracks shorter than a kilometre when you were 14 till you were 16. So we raced at a short circuit motorsport association, which gave us the ability to race door to door in full size cars. Then after that, we did a mix of sort of hill climb and that, and we ended up building a S13, which we turned into an improved production car. Raced that for a couple of years before getting into Series 2 RX-7, which we did production car stuff, improved production. But as you guys would know, it's hard to sort of prove yourself in a multi-class category. You sort of have to be in a one-make series to get anywhere with, sponsorships and even just the acknowledgement about driving. We were sort of, I think 2020, when would it have been? 23, we were probably on the verge of just like throwing it away because we were spending so much money and not really getting anywhere and nothing was really coming from it. And you can sort of only do it for so long like that. But we stumbled across the RX8 Cup series and we ended up doing 2 rounds at the back end of 23 and, really enjoyed it and moved into the RX8, the Formula RX8 series in 2024 with TFH. So that's sort of
how was that as an experience? Obviously, how was it as an experience going from what you were doing before to being with TFH and essentially claiming the championship at the end of the year?
Yeah, it was different because we'd only, we'd been running our own car solely since to that point. So it was our first time racing for an actual team. So that was a lot different. It took a lot of weight off us where we didn't have to really prepare the car. We just had to get ourselves to the track and race. And I think that brought back my sort of ability a bit more because I wasn't stressed about 100 other things. I could just get to the track and drive. And moving into that one-make series was great because you start to lose a bit of confidence as a driver when you're in sort of, you're in amidst like a production sort of car category and you got people say, oh yeah, the only reason you're doing well is because of the car or because of this and that. There's no real acknowledgement for anyone driving half decent. So when you move into a category like the Formula RX8, the cars are the same. They're pretty much standard RX8s with a bolt-in roll cage and a seat. You can only do very limited things and it really comes down to the driver. Having a good season and winning that championship, I think brought back a lot of confidence in me as a driver, which I think I'd lost to that point.
I say, and obviously since you left Formula RX8, you're now in TA2. It may sound like a bit of a silly question, but what would be the obviously quite different cars to what you were racing when you started TA2 to RX8, but what would you say the biggest difference would be fundamentally? As much as like Trans Am TA2 is like quite a recognized category now, but still like at a grassroots level motorsport, what would you say the biggest fundamental difference is stepping up from like a specific one-make series to Trans Am?
Yeah, it is quite a big step up. Like forgetting the cars for a minute, just the way the categories run. like you said, it is still grassroots, but if you look at it probably like, what, 2 or 3 years ago, it's up here now compared to how it was run, just with professionalism and the teams you got. You have Gary Rogers running 4 cars and multiple teams like that. Matt Stone Racing are involved now. So, you got big teams with a lot of racing heritage, joining the category, which is great. It, it drives the cost up a little bit, but as far as like what you're getting, you get good coverage exposed to good name drivers. So you're competing against a field that there's no questions about it. If you have a good result, you've got that result because you drove well, not because the people you're driving against aren't, they're just average drivers, So you really got to prove yourself. And so and even how tight the regulations are, and even submitting entries and paperwork and stuff like that. As silly as that sounds, it's all sort of a step up, and it's hard because we're running our car solely now, just with family and a few mates. So managing all of that can get a little bit tricky. So that's probably the biggest change as far as the category step up goes. But the cars are obviously a lot different, like you mentioned. So going from a standard road going car, right-hand drive, no really performance, like basic performance stuff, to a purpose-built left-hand drive, essentially NASCAR-y type car it's a lot different. Getting used to sitting on the left is one thing, and then how the cars drive, but I don't know where you'd start. There's they're quite different. You can't compare them, but they're good fun.
Yeah, obviously from RX8 to TA2, I guess what was the decision that made you go, okay, TA2 is the right pathway? Because I guess these days, like, there's a variety of different platforms you can go down. I'd be kind of curious to see why you went down that pathway.
Yes. It's been a sort of a thought for quite a few years. I remember myself and Dad went out to QR when they first run them, and I think there was about 8 cars, and we watched their first ever round at Queensland Raceway, and I think that might have been 2017. I don't know exactly, but and we thought from the get go. I remember me and Dad sort of spoke with each other and said, this is going to be the new big thing. And, it's sort of been a thought of ours since then. But getting into the One Mate series, and then it was either like, we sort of started with the RX8s purely off cost. Like, we could have run the Ep.6s, which are fundamentally a very similar car, but the cost of it, because it's run with V8 supercars, is through the roof. And you have a lot of like the cars are quite expensive as a race car, and they're very easy to write off because they're not a built race car. You have one bad accident and the thing's done, and you got like 15, 16-year-olds that really don't care. So it's sort of a very risky field to start driving in when you're tight on money. And we found the RX8s were a good clean category for that. And then we were looking at where to go. And like you said, there's a bunch of different options, but our reason behind it was how much traction it's gaining recently with popularity, the teams, the drivers entering it, even the fans. You actually get a decent turnout to the tracks now, and the cost for what you're getting, to run a Super 2 these days, if you want to run a Super 2, it's about $800,000 a year. If you want to rock up to a team and run it, it used to be at 500, but now especially, you probably know more than me, you guys, but when they're going to turn to the Gen 3, or when were they going to upgrade the Super 2 to the next gen? Because then the cost was meant to be $1 million a year. I don't know when they're meant to be doing that. But it's just not
they're going to be
feasible.
doing it in 2028, I think.
Yeah. So the cost of it's just through the roof. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And you can run a Trans Am car for a quarter of that. So, like, competitively, and fundamentally they're quite a simple car. Like, proven that we run it out of our shed. None of us have a mechanical backing. We're all got different trades. None of my mates are mechanics that come away and help us. We're all just friends and family doing it together, and we've learnt everything about these cars ourselves. So it's quite rewarding when you're going up against, proper teams and having some good results against them. But basically just the cost and we think the category's going to do some pretty big things in the next few years.
Now, I remember saying to youth even last year when we went to the 6 hour, like the T8, like just Trans Am T82 model was just, it's skyrocketed to what it used to be. And I said, and I still believe it is going to be a big thing, like as the years progress. Obviously, they run them in the States, and as supercars get way too expensive, especially Super 2, like you said, Brock, with the new Gen 3 coming to Super 2, I'm going to expect a lot of teams jumping ship. A lot of drivers will probably just simply won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
Which is a real shame, but that does open the door to even GTs, but especially the TA2 and Trans Am.
Just quickly add to your point there, Dan, if you look at the trajectory that TA2 Trans Am has been on ever since it got introduced, because one of the main biggest things is people have always said, and I agree to an extent, but I also disagree slightly, it's what the supercars should have become. And I understand that statement, but at the same time, I think supercars in itself with the new Gen 3 is quite unique, and I think they've done a very good job with it, but there's just something about the aura of like the Trans Am category. And like I said, you just watch the way it's skyrocketed in popularity over the last couple of years, and it's a good alternative when V8s are on. I think I said it a couple of episodes ago, it's a criminally underrated category, and I don't think it gets enough traction, even though it's like quite popular at the moment, but I don't think it gets enough hype, and I'd love to see it. I don't know how supercars would feel about it, and I know they run under different race groups because AASA and then Motorsport Australia, or whatever it's called now, but can you imagine having them as like a support category for V8s all the time? That'd be freaking sick, and get them more exposure. That'd be awesome.
See, the TA2 run two separate, and it used to be owned by separate entities, but now it's combined, and HCC Distributions own both. So you got Trans Am and you got TA. Now TA2 is run under the AASA banner, and Trans Am's run under Motorsport Australia. So I don't know if you've seen the Trans Am category, a Trans Am calendar for this year, but round one was obviously at Bathurst, which was combined with TA2 Trans Am. But they're going to Darwin with the supercars. They're going to Perth with the supercars. They're going to Queensland Raceway with supercars. Where else are they going? They're going Sandown. I think they're going one more. So they got 5 rounds this year with supercars. So I think that shows a lot of, I remember supercars were like, you'd never hear them mention it. If they had it was sort of a controversial thing. And I think they've accepted the fact that they're going to have to sort of welcome it. I think they felt like not pressured by them, but like it was going to be a competition that could supersede supercars. But I think now they're working with it, and, it won't. But the Trans Am series definitely, is running with supercars this year, which is good to see.
Oh yeah, it's good, but and also like that's a really good point too. Like obviously they're going to be at a few rounds of supercars this year, but like it would be cool to see them even more than that. I mean, can you imagine a Bathurst weekend where you've got a half an hour or 45-minute race with TA2 and Trans Am combined for Bathurst weekend, like at the 1000? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I guess one thing you mentioned the AASA, and obviously, like, they're obviously controlling some of the racing as well, and managing some of the racing. I guess there's the new racing regulations around the yellow cards and all that kind of jazz, which seem to work pretty well on the weekend. I'd be keen to get your thoughts on what you think about it, and is it any different, or is it better?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It's different, but ever since Marcus Ambrose, is running the Super Series now and the AASA, he's implemented that, and it's I think it's working quite well. I just got to get my head around it a bit better because I've sort of, it's hard to get compared to what you're used to, where you've been racing for so long under this, sort of the same regulations across the board. But having the ability to use your yellow card, so you can like bump and run someone to a certain degree, and you'll get a yellow card for it. A yellow card isn't a penalty, so you can make that position from that, but you can only do it the third time you do it. You're going to get a red card, and you will get a penalty, and those carry over from the weekend. So, like, if you heard Morris talking about it, they used theirs early in the weekend, and Sunday they had to drive, a bit reserved because they would have got a red card. So it gives the ability for that bumper to bumper sort of bit of barge and stuff like that, which the fans like. It doesn't always help the pocket, but it's good racing, and at the end of the day, it's just a bit of fiberglass. No, I think the system's working well. He's doing the hot recoveries and hot restarts. When you watch the coverage, you have one category come off as the other one's halfway on their warm-up lap. So there's no breaks. It's full on, and I don't get to sit at home and watch it, but hopefully it makes for good coverage for people watching at home. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching some of the Queensland racing, and I was quite impressed how quickly the next category came on, because you watch the supercars rounds and they'll have a session, and then you've got like a half an hour break, and then you've got another session, and it kind of ruins the flow. Like from a spectator point of view, it's kind of nice just to have everything kind of in one cohesive lump. But yeah, I was kind of impressed with how they're doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
no.
gotta say, because I was there for the bend, for the hypers, and what I really liked about the whole Ambrose thing was the fact that every time TA2 were out on track, the schedule would reset, so no one would miss out on coverage time or anything like that, because they kept getting delayed and delayed. Because last year that was a big thing with Super Series, everything kept getting delayed to a point where some races were missed out on the broadcast when they were guaranteed broadcast time, whereas this time around it's a lot better. So I completely agree with Brock.
I think they do all the other categories off laps, and then two is a set time. The only thing I think it might be biased because I'm racing it, but I think TA2 should be the top category in the Super Series. And sometimes, like, you'll have other categories getting, say, top 10 shootouts or longer qualifying sessions, and our track time can be quite limited. So I'd like to see a little bit more, like at QR, they had the grid walk for every year with the 2-driver event. I think they should have had a grid walk. I think that makes it feel a bit more professional, and it also gets the fans onto the track and up close and personal with the cars. That's the only thing that we've sort of noticed, is it feels like maybe they've promised too many categories, too many things, and they got to try and keep everyone happy. And sometimes categories get compromised where, like, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but I think that the TA2 should be like the supercars of supercars, TA2 of the high-tech oils. It's sort of that same, it should be the main category at those events.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was like even like if even now at the 6 hour at Bathurst, and like probably more people were more interested in the TA2 cars than the actual 6 hour race. Like the crowd was getting around it, and the atmosphere it brought was unreal. But yeah, I definitely think it needs a lot more attention, because it's unreal to watch.
I'll just touch on what I said earlier. Like, obviously, because TA2 just keeps getting more popular each year, and like what you mentioned about the 6 hour Macca, we noticed that when the TA2s were on track, that's the one that everyone just came to flock against the fence to watch them, either at the start line or up across the top or wherever you were on the track. And obviously, other categories did too, but there's just something about it. It's just like, no matter how many racing categories, like the way I see it, no matter how many racing categories we have in this country, we have some really awesome stuff from obviously GT cars or production cars. But at the end of the day, everyone's going to flock to the wall to watch a screaming V8 come past. There's just something about it.
Yeah, definitely. And when Lounsey drove him last year at the 2-driver event, he said they drove similar to like an early 2000s supercar, with the way they moved on the tire and the H pattern and the solid rear axle. So they're sort of taking what everyone loved about supercars, and they've brought that back a little bit. Yeah, they got very little aero. So, for what they are, they're quite a big car. They got tiny wing on them, a little splitter at the front, that's it. And on a 15-inch rim, you're very limited with brake size. Yeah, you got tiny brakes, 520 horsepower, and they only weigh 1,200 kilos because they're all fiberglass. So, they got a big, baggy, slick, 4-speed H-pattern gearbox. Like, the formula is like, it's perfect in my opinion.
So you said 1,200, didn't you?
Yeah. So 1250 is minimum weight.
It's actually about 100 kilo less than what a Project Blueprint supercar was back in the day, because they were about 1,350 from memory. So they're even lighter than an old school supercar.
They're light. Yeah, and the motors aren't sort of high stress, so you get a good amount of life out of them. You know, they only rev to like 6,800. Their LS3s, they'll run forever. You know, I think what kills them is people misshifting, which does happen a fair bit. They've moved to you have two options for gearboxes now. You can run a Hollinger or you can run a G-Force. They're both 4 speeds. They both have the same ratio, but people kept breaking the G-Forces. But if you drive them right and you look after them, they're perfectly fine. A lot of people drive these cars left foot brake, and they obviously downshift without the clutch. And if you get that wrong a few times, you know, it shocks the gearbox. So I personally am a right foot braker, like heel toe, and I've never had a problem with those boxes, but there's no sort of performance advantage running, you know, whatever one you want. It's just more of a cost thing for us. We got 2 G-Forces, we're going to keep using them, but I was just happy they stayed with that, you know, 4-speed H pattern, because, you know, it makes for good racing.
Oh, definitely. Just to clear up one thing, because the category is so controlled, like similar to what supercars now, a lot of control components. Would you say that obviously skill does come into it, but would you say one of the biggest things for being up the front in Trans Am or TA2 would be more setup?
Yeah. I don't think, obviously, I don't know. There might be people pushing, obviously, there's going to be people pushing the limits of everything they can do, but it's very well regulated. They test, you know, wheelbase, wheel track, height, fuel, you know, all the seals you got on your fuel rail, gearbox, diff, motor. They check everything, you know, and then they pick out a few random like niche things to check out each round. So they're quite vigilant on the scrutineering, which is great. And yeah, I do agree with that. It's a lot. It comes down to the setup, and it's hard for someone like us coming in where we've never run a car like this. So we get the car and okay, we got someone, the car's already got the setup in it, and we've got someone giving us advice. But his whole, you know, theory about setting up a car is completely different to the guy who set it up before we bought it. And they don't work together. So he's like, oh no, change this, change that. We change this, but it doesn't work with that. So now we're at a point where we've finally got everything to a sort of a setup that works, and it's no longer something we can sort of ask. It's just about learning what each thing does and putting it as a tool, you know, for when, okay, the car's doing this. I know that if I give this a turn or I shim that or we do this, that it's gonna do this, and that's what I want it to do. So there is a lot of things you can change, like spring rates. The shocks are sealed, so they're all Penske shocks. They have to be sealed, but springs, you can run whatever spring you want. You can run whatever diff ratio you want at the track. And then everything is adjustable on it. So, you know, obviously they got a straight rear end. You can't really play with toe or camber in the back, but all the arms you can, the Watts linkage, and then every arm in the front's adjustable. And you got like people saying, you know, we're running this height at the front. No, you're 1 mil too high. You gotta drop it a mil. Like that's how sort of precise people set these cars up. And at the start you think, oh well, it's close enough. But if you have that mentality, it doesn't work. You have to be real anal about it. And it seems over the top, but if you're in a field where nobody really bothers, you don't see any advantage. But when everyone does it and everyone's being that meticulous about it, if you don't do it, well, you're wasting your time.
So I guess like here's a bit of a bold question, but let's just say hypothetically the series organizers came to you and said, here's $1 million, change the sport however you want, change tier 2 however you want, change the cars, anything like that. What would be at the top of your list?
Oh, that's good. I don't know. I personally wouldn't change anything. I think the new owners, when HCC purchased the categories and, you know, combined TA2 and Trans Am, I think that was very smart because they were sort of going at each other, and that could have been quite detrimental to the category. So doing that was smart, and now their sort of goal behind it is just to get reliability. You don't often see a supercar, you know, have really mechanical failures. Like you don't have multiple cars dropping out in a race because of mechanical failures. So when 25 cars start and 15 cars finish, it's not a great look for the category. So they're putting a lot of time and development into making them more reliable because the cars are going too quick for what they're built for. Like if you go back a couple of years, 14.5, a 14-second, 1 minute 14 around QR was like, that was a lap record for a while. Now people are qualifying in high tens, and everything shakes loose on the cars. You have to bolt check him, and by the end of it, everything's shaking. And if you don't do those checks, like, you'll have problems. So I think they're probably not developed to be driven as hard as what they're getting driven. And so what they're doing now, I think if you could spend money on it, it would just be to make them more sort of reliable. But I think the formula they got now, like, I hope they don't change it too much, because I think it's great. I think what they're doing is pretty good with it. So they're focusing on reliability, which is great. If you have 25 cars enter the weekend and 15 cars start the last race, that's probably, as a spectator point of view, you don't want that. So I think what the new owners are doing is great, and they're really focusing on getting the cars to where they can just be run around the track all day, and you're not going to have dramas. And it works quite well. They release a bulletin, you go in, you get the upgrade and you put it on. So they got a good method behind the way they do everything, and you don't really get left behind, or you don't turn up to the track and go, "Hey, what's this?" And they say, "Oh, it's the upgrade," so they all know, which is good.
I guess there's just one more thing I want to ask about, like both series combined. Like obviously, again, we've mentioned a few times tonight how popular it is becoming, but also you mentioned Matt Stone Racing and Gary Rogers, which one was formerly in supercars for a long time and one still is. With some of the drivers now who are not all in the main supercars game all full time, they've gone and done Trans Am racing. But with the way the cars, I just want to ask you this, your opinion. With the way the cars are, and like I said, the popularity it's getting, for anyone wanting to get into probably Super 2 or even supercars one day, do you now see that being the actual stepping stone to get recognized by supercars team owners and whatnot?
100%. Yeah. I think you look at the Super 2 field now, the field numbers dropped. And I think because there's no clashing, especially the TA2 side of it, does not clash with any supercars. So even now you have a lot of Super 2 drivers driving TA2. It's just about getting seat time. I think, if you're a category like a supercars team owner and you had a young guy come to you and said, I want to race Trans Am instead of Super 2, I can't see why they'd say no. I think the racecraft, everything you learn in Trans Am, you learn in Super 2. I don't think there's a big benefit besides it directly being a supercar, but they're different I guess when they go Gen 3 everything, then you are going to be driving your detuned supercar compared to the main game. But right now they're different, and, I think Trans Am isn't that far away from it in terms of what you learn. I think definitely over the next few years, you'll see a lot of Super 2 drivers and people wanting to get into supercars, race Trans Am. And they offer, the only benefit to Super 2 is they offer supercar license points, where if you finish in the top 4 or maybe top 6 in the championship, you have enough super points to race a supercar. From Super 2, Trans Am, is the next highest place category to gain super points. So 100%, you'll see a lot of people move in the future to Trans Am.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the quality of the field and, the TA2 Trans Am, you've got people like Todd Hazelwood and, like former Vetters winners and the like people who are absolute guns. And you look at Super 2, they're probably not at that same kind of level. So, yeah, it's definitely hard to kind of see who.
That's
why you go
also
to
a
Super
good
2.
point. Yeah, you don't see experienced races, a lot of experienced races coming to Super 2. They're all young guys coming through. No, that's right. That's a good point, actually. I've never really thought of that. But yeah, you got a lot of Moffat and Hazelwood and all of that. Even Golding, they're all racing him too. you're not seeing him come and doing drives in Super 2s. And I think a big part of it for the TA2 or for the supercars drivers is you're getting more seat time, and it's not clashing with supercars.
I guess
You're
the thing
definitely
to point
proving
out,
yourself.
yeah, like because obviously supercars they're extremely strict with when you can even drive the car, whereas I guess Trans Am or TA2 opens that door to still get that seat time in a V8 powered machine with a similar aero to the Gen 3 in a way.
Oh,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Like,
definitely.
I mean, even look at the end of Gen 2, look at the amount, it started becoming less and less in that time, but you'd see a lot of the co-drivers for coming up for, like, whether it was the Bend or Bathurst or Sandown, they'd go and do a Super 2 round as a wild card before Enduro season kicked off. But now you're seeing a lot of those guys, they're now just running either running TA2 full time or just jumping in here and there because, like you said, we mentioned James Golding, perfect example. Just to get more seat time, he's running in the TA2 championship and actually doing quite well in the Gen 3 at the moment, and I'm doing well in the standings this year too. So it's obviously paying off.
I think seat time just comes down to it, regardless of what you're driving. If you can get your seat in the car, you're going to be better, which is where the lower budget struggles, because we can't just go to the track every week and test. Testing costs money, everything costs money. And when you're trying to run the season on a budget, you can't really get that testing in, which is unfortunate. But I think they were all running the GTs down at the Bend this weekend. I don't know if you guys watched that, but I thought that was pretty good racing. GT4s is looking like a great category as well. I think the grass,
Definitely.
well, that transition from grassroots to professional, I think there's somewhere in between there, because you look at all those cars and how they run and everything, it's a bit more than grassroots. But whatever you want to call that, I think it's really flourishing in Australia at the moment. And it's great to see so many of these categories that probably you go back 20 years or 10 years, no one cared about. If it wasn't a supercar, no one cared about it. Like, they wouldn't have a clue about the racing. They wouldn't watch it. They just wanted to be at supercars. But we're
Not even a
refined
lot of
our...
Sorry, I was going to say, not even a lot of people watch what was it called? What was the DBS series called back in the day? Was it the Konica series or something?
Yeah, Konica. Well, it's been
Konica
multiple
and the
names, yeah.
Fujitsu. And people wouldn't even watch that. Like, people would just be like, oh, if it's not the main game supercars, we're not going to watch anything. And then, but you've got some seriously good talent in a lot of these feeder categories. And that's why I mentioned in the other episode, Macca, like, about grassroots racing, like, people saying, oh, I don't want to watch that. That's crap. It's just like, no, it's like the lower level categories offer some of the best racing we've got in this country right now. It's absolutely friggin' epic to watch.
And you go to the track, you pay a quarter of the price, you can walk through the pits, you can see the cars in person, you can, you do that at supercars, man. I don't know how a family could go and afford to watch supercars. Like, the cost of it's through the roof.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I was comparing it to like the 6 hour. I think it was like $60 for the entire weekend or something for tickets. It's just like, you wouldn't even get that for one day at supercars, And it's probably cheaper for me to drive up to Bathurst, stay there, and get the tickets and come back. It's just.
I think
even
I think for the Gold Coast, I think even for this year and years gone by, I think last year for the 3-day weekend, it was like I paid 180 something from memory. But for a day pass, it's like still over $100, and that's just walking around the paddock. That's not even.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not even with pit access. That's not even with especially at the Gold Coast. It's if you want to sit in the grandstand, that's an extra whatever. That's just to pay just to get in the gate and stand against the fence.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I guess with like the quality of the field and TA2, like one driver you've kind of like competed against where you're going like, shit, that dude's on another level, and you've like, is there been anyone like that, or someone you've kind of not get a rivalry, but someone you've kind of looked, wow, that's impressive?
Because I'm competing against them, we do it because we love doing it, and motorsport's a part of like my family's life and that. But we're doing it because we want to win. And that's just the competitive in any sort of sports person. But I want to win, and I think that on my day I can beat anyone in that field. They're all top quality drivers, and as you move through the ranks, you notice that what might have been the top 3 drivers stretches to the top 10, all that have that ability, and then the top 15, all that have that ability. It just there's no real one that stands out because they're all within, in I guess a few thousandths on the track. It's also tight. But it's great because when you do win and you do beat some of those bigger teams and drivers, it's rewarding. And you haven't just, no one can say, you beat them fair and square. So it's good to have that quality of driver that you race against. And you can really compare yourself to, people in the main game and go, well, I'm not that far off. But to me, anyone that drives in these sort of level categories in motorsport are pretty good drivers. You get a few that get there because they got the money and they think this might be fun, but majority of these people in there, have talent as well.
Good answer.
I was going to say, so basically, another way of putting it would be, would it be fair to say, like, no one's really in that category, whether it's Trans Am or TA2, just because they've got the money and they're just going to go around bashing around at other people? It's basically everyone's there purely on merit.
Well, I wouldn't say just that, but if you look at how the category's gone, it probably was more of a gentleman drivers category a few years ago, where you'd have people that it was relatively cheap to get into. It was good just to drive around and race. But the talent, there's still a lot of money, and people get there because of money. But there's a lot of talent there too, and that's sort of driven those club level drivers, out. And what's left in the category is quite a high talent field. With motorsport, it unfortunately all comes down to money. We would be racing Super 2 if we had the money. Just purely off, you can step into a supercar and you can get your super points. Not because I'd rather be driving them, but just the way the system works. But it's all money, If you got the money, you can drive it. There's no one's stopping you. So not entirely true like that, but the way it's evolving if you got 20 fast drivers and you just want to drive around for fun and you're 5 seconds off the pace, well, it's not fun, I think you'll see a few TA2s running in sports sedans, and that just for driving, they're obviously fun to drive, but the category is quite serious now.
There was actually a TA2 car in Super TT at the 6 hour.
Yeah,
from memory.
exactly. So yeah, there was, yeah. So that's sort of probably, I gather he was doing that because, look, might not have the budget to run competitively in Trans Am, and probably doesn't have the speed. He can drive around Bathurst in the same car for, a bit cheaper and not have like 25 cars on the track that are quicker than him.
What's the next goal beyond TA2, if there is one yet for yourself?
Yep. We're sort of obviously you always want to move up in the world of motorsport, but we're lucky enough to have a few great sponsors backing me. But like we've talked about, that step to go to the next level is just too much. So we can manage doing this. So really, we might move into the Trans Am side of things and run a few events with supercars, but we're probably going to focus on just doing this for maybe a few years, what we can. And hopefully if we can pick up more sponsors along the way, then that will help us get to the next step. Maybe, you'd probably race the Michelin series in the Porsches. They're a bit cheaper than the cup level cars, but still a jump up from TA2, and I think you're really achieving, it's sort of a step sideways as much as it is forward. So the next step would be Super 2, but it's just a matter of getting the funding together for that, and it also depends how supercars evolves over the next few years. But we're pretty focused on the TAs for at least the next few years, I think.
So I guess ideally, like the long-term goal is to get into supercars.
It was always a goal, since I was a kid. I want to race supercars. You also got to take, like, sometimes I step back and go, well, like when I was a kid dreaming of racing supercars, what I'm doing now is pretty cool. So sometimes you gotta, step back and go, appreciate what you're actually doing now, because especially when you're like that competitive and always chasing the next thing, you sort of lose track of what you're actually achieving at the moment. So I think that goes for any sport, you always want the next thing. And at the end of the day, someone would kill to do what I'm doing. So I do appreciate it. And I know how lucky I am to be able to drive these cars as well. So just take, every race as we go, and hopefully we have a few good results, and that can help with sponsors and teams and the future.
Probably the most mature comment we've ever had on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I
Hey,
think
there's
about
the
it a
first
lot,
time there's the
actually.
first
I
time
think
we-
about it a lot.
Fair
I
enough.
remember years ago, Brock, when you and I and what was it, Marcus and Kyle and Sam used to hang out, I
Yeah.
think around the COVID times. And I remember asking you back then, I think you were like, gosh, you're probably like only 18 at the time. I asked you, I
Yeah.
said, what's your ultimate goal in racing? And you said you want to get to Super 2. But even then, you were telling me about how much the category was costing even at that
Yeah.
time. And that time, there was running
I
Super
think,
2.
yeah.
I don't even think Gen 3 had been confirmed at that stage to give
No,
you an
I think
indication of like
it's,
how much
it was
cost
about
back
half a
then.
million a year to run Super 2. Yeah. But the problem with that is right now, like we have sponsors that are involved with the ownership of the car, but it's still something that we can fix on our own accord. There's no financial stress. Like if we wrote the car off, we can fix it in our own time, or whatever needs fixing. We're not going to have a bill next week at our door saying you owe us 150 grand. So that's obviously another appeal to it as well. But yeah, no, like you said, back then it was so expensive. It's cool to see,
Yeah.
like you mentioned that. Yeah, you mentioned that a few years ago. Like I said, like it's pretty. I look back at those sort of things and what I was doing then, and then that period when I was gonna give, like, I lost that in sort of spark for racing, and then now it's all come back. So super grateful for that.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's awesome. Like I think from memory back then, that's when you were running the green RX-7, wasn't it?
It would have been
Or
because
was that
I
just before?
started.
'Cause I know you had the Sylvia.
No, we bought the RX, the green Ipra car, in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been around
Yeah,
that
we bought
time.
that
I
in
mean, not long
2019.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
so
probably still had the Sylvia at the time.
I remember you. Like, I remember you vaguely mentioning it a few times, and then I remember, like, because when you were mentioning more about where you were going to go with your racing, and I started following your journey as coming up through the ranks and whatnot. I remember one photo that always stands out to me is I think you had as your cover photo at one point was when the tailgate came open midway through the race, and
Yeah.
What actually
Yeah.
happened there? I never asked you. Did it just pop open, or did something break and you just
Yeah,
couldn't get a shot?
because that was in the RX-7. They just have like a glass hatch on them. Yeah, you go over all the curves, the cars flex and twist and all of that, and stuff pops open all the times. I didn't know until I finished the race.
Oh, so
I
you
think
finished the
on the
race.
straits it was flattening out. Yeah.
I was
You
saying,
know,
yeah,
the
you
think,
wouldn't do
straight, it
well
was
with that.
like,
You wouldn't do
so,
well with that any other category.
no,
I think you would have. I think you just invented Active Aero.
yeah, mate, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was doing that.
81
He
model.
was doing that. I was just say he was doing Active Aero Ferrari style before Ferrari thought of it. Like,
I'm sure
I
Adrian
do
Newey was
miss,
watching
we
that
still
race.
have that car. We still have it.
you still have it.
Yeah.
You still have it. That's pretty cool.
We
Yeah.
want to
You
get,
still have the
we
Sylvia?
do want to sell it. No, sold that one, but still got the Series 2 RX-7 that's sitting in our little carports.
Yeah,
Needs to get a
was
run. Yeah, we probably want to list it for sale soon, but I got my street car that I'm trying to finish, but racing takes up so much time that, every
what are you
afternoon you're
building?
spending time. I got an FC RX-7.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I like the rotaries. But you know what it's like, you start a project and the next you keep doing things and then it takes forever, but fitting
Trust
around
me.
the racing, and yeah, the racing takes priority. So when we get damage or like right now, the car's still sitting in the transporter. We're taking it out Thursday, and I think this
really?
weekend every panel bar the roof skin has to come off the car because it's got holes and it's all cracked and there's paint off it everywhere. So the whole thing needs to get repainted after that co-driver weekend.
Jeez.
I remember I had some stuff in the front of it after the 6-hour weekend too.
Yeah, the front of it was pretty good. We didn't have to repaint anything after Bathurst, which was surprising. But if you look at the car now, it looks like it's come out of a war. It's like it looks sad. But we're going to Sydney in bit of a break now, which is nice actually. June, July, August. We don't go till we go to Sydney, and that's a night event. So it's always cool driving under lights at Sydney.
Yeah. The one thing I love about your car too is like every time I look at it, like obviously it has the correct number, but every time I look at it, because it's the same shade, it's a very similar shade, all I can think of is back to the GRM Volvo days, just like Scotty Mac era. Every time I see that car on track, I'm just like, oh, there goes Scotty.
We hope it looks pretty good out there.
It does. I thought to ask you, was that just coincidence, or was that just coincidence? The fact that you had a blue Camaro.
It sort of was a coincidence. 33 has always been my race number, so I've always stuck with that since I was young. So, and we were gonna paint it. It came with a horrible paint job on it. It was just a matte, like chalkboard blue, like chalky, and like a matte, like a spray with a can. But for us painting, it's a lot cheaper than wrapping it. So I don't know. I just picked that color out. I always like that blue. It's a Mustang. It's a Mustang blue. It's grabber blue. So the code's a Ford Mustang, but but it looks good on a Camaro, I reckon. Better on a Camaro. Yeah.
And now you're winding up all the Mustang fans. Yeah.
That's right.
And Mac is just going to clip
All in
this
the
and
comment
wind up
section.
as a Mustang flag.
Yeah.
You can have an entire Ford dealership at your front door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will they sponsor me?
Every diehard Scotty Mac fan's going to be like, how dare you?
Oh, pretty much.
But
Sorry, what were you gonna
no,
say, Dan?
it's good. We added that yellow. We added the yellow this year. I don't know. It seems to stand out a bit more.
No, it looks
We
good.
just got a roll of vinyl. We stick it like we can't wrapping, especially cars like this that get stored and tire marks down them all day. You try and wrap it, and you end up spending a race weekend's budget on wrap a year. We got a little shed at the back of our main shed, and then a little paint shed, and we just take all the bits off, paint it in there, bolt it back on. But yeah, it needs some work.
Have you ever thought about putting a 13B Bridgeport into it instead of a V8?
If I could, I would, mate. I like the rotaries. The V8's cool.
I thought Mac was about to ask, do you have any room for poster and dump stickers on the rear bar? Or...
That was my next question. Shut up.
Oh,
if you ever want some podcast stickers, we can hook you up.
Yeah, mate. I was sticking wherever. But if someone's going to pay for that area, they got to come off.
I'll chuck in $50.
Yeah. You can go in our truck.
I'm good for it. I have references.
I'll just say, because the Moshpit stickers are like reflective vinyl. If you ever really want to be an a-hole to someone one day, like if they've rubbed you up in a race, just slap a sticker on the rear bar and make sure they're behind you when the sunlight and blind them. So.
Yeah, I'll have to sticker bomb the whole rear end.
Yeah.
I don't know if you listened to that episode, Brock, but Macca seems to think that's what happened to Grand Daniel at the 6 hour. I reckon he saw a Motorsport Moshpit sticker on the wall at turn 2 in the sunlight, and he just got blinded.
Bad.
There was literally a sticker right in front of him.
Yeah, where were you guys? Were you guys still there when that incident happened?
I was actually at the top. I was actually at the top of McPhillamy when that crash happened. And because they had it was one of the very few big screens they had at the track, and we all just looked up and we saw the impact because he was showing it live, and the whole crowd was just like, "Whoa, like that's bad." And then we saw the replay. I was like, "Oh, that's actually pretty serious."
Yeah, and it took him a while because I think they wanted to clear everyone involved, but I'm like, what happened? Because they weren't showing replays. And the race was stopped, and I'm like, what's going on? because we were around the top as well. Because it was about we already packed up and we were about to go home or go back to our Airbnb. We just didn't watch some of the race, and I remember seeing it come past on the tilt train. I'm like, geez, like that thing's destroyed. Like, how did that happen? And both had like front end impact. It was like, how did that happen? But you see the replay and it's a bit scary.
That's I'll just say, well, might actually be a good time to now. Obviously, you've seen the replay and whatnot, but from a driver's point of view, what's your take on an accident like that? That's for someone who
Well, what
actually
it looked
does
like,
race.
yeah, well, that Sirocco was obviously came to that incident first, and a double yellow is waving into the corner. So the last thing he's expecting is someone to come up on his driver's right. So he's seen the accident, the car pulled over on the left, and he's just trying to give it room. And that's, I think, Daniel overtook on the right as he's come, to sort of give the guy pulled over a bit of room. So, like, to me, that's completely on the car that's gone for the overtake. Like, one, you shouldn't be overtaking under a double yellow. And I think he came out, like, I think Grant even said initially, like, put a post up when he first went to hospital and said, oh, it's fun when they drive into you or something like that. And then he put an apology up later after he realized that there was double yellows and he just missed them. Probably focused on the battle ahead. You do miss flags, but I think the onus comes down to the guy on your radio. Regardless of where you are on the track, he should be saying, like, yellow's T2, car on driver's left. And then that incident shouldn't have happened. But you're in the car, you're racing and stuff happens.
It's happened. Like, stuff happens in the blink of an eye. Like,
That's right.
I don't think you were here for that episode, Dan, but didn't you and I discuss that incident, Macca, in the 6-hour review?
Yep.
And what we thought about what's actually, I want to ask you both, Brock and Dan, about this, because now we're obviously talking about that crash real quickly. But want to get both of your opinions. Obviously, it was still a freak accident at the end of the day. There was nothing really deliberate in that. Like, accidents happen, mistakes happen. You can't go back and revisit. But to avoid something like that, is there anything either of you would put going forward, like more safety measures? Because I think Macca and I spoke about, what if it became mandatory? Like, I know they have to be activated by the officials as well, from what I know. But would you make it mandatory for each category that races from now on has to have the onboard yellow flag as well in the dash and other stuff like that, and also like the LED lights around the track for safety, for warning of like yellow flag or something if someone's missed the flag marshal?
I think the yellow flags, like, or the yellow lights on the track marshal points as opposed to flags, do catch your attention a lot more, as opposed to someone just waving a flag. Especially in a track that's like Bathurst, where you get sort of lost in the, you're focused on the track. You got trees and houses and fences and everything on the other side of the pit walls that you're not looking at. So people waving a flag on the side there, it does sort of just blend in. But I think lights would be the best way. The onboard lights, again, like, unless you got it right in front of you and they're super bright, but I think that's probably because it doesn't tell you anything. It's more so like, okay, yellow comes up. Is it around this corner or is it on turn 12? I think the best way to avoid it is having clear marshalling and people on your radio, because as soon as, like, I know, we have two people on the radios. One's on race control. Both can talk to me, but one's purely talking to me. And then I have my dad on race control. And, as soon as he hears something from race control, it gets relayed straight to me. Car off here, car there, driver's right, driver's left, yellow here, whatever. So I think that's the best method, is having your crew chief just radio in and explaining the situation, because you can't miss that.
No, communication is definitely key for sure. Obviously, I think one thing we got to point out as well, which I can't remember if you guys pointed it out or not, but it's two massive crashes in a row for Bathurst this year. We, of course, had the 12-hour crash. Similar situation with the yellow, with the flags and stuff. And then, of course, the 6-hour as well. LED lights, though, that is my thing that I absolutely, because obviously I'm not a driver. So obviously radio is important, but from a viewing point and just in general from what I can see, the LED lights around the track is definitely something they should implement, because obviously, if you think about it, every international track, for example, especially even the Ben or SMP even have it. Bathurst is one of the only tracks in Australia that doesn't have the LED lights, and it could change everything, especially like you said, Brock, how it's the thing, your eye can catch it, whereas, for example, if it's on the dash or something, you might not see it straight away.
Got a bit of a left field question, I guess, but what is your ideal car to track combo? Like, you pick any car at any time, any track at any time. Well, what would you pick?
Well, something that I've had experience in compared to, like, I have driven a few race cars, like quite a lot of different cars. But the reason I fell in love with the rotaries was just that, especially the naturally aspirated ones, because ours would rev to almost 11,000. So having all of those revs and just the raw feeling in the car, especially of an early RX-7, they only weigh a ton. They're under a ton without the driver, and to have about 300 horsepower revving to 11,000 with a close ratio gearbox, it's like that's awesome to drive around. It's so raw, and there's no power steer. They still run an old steering box, and they got a live axle. So I think, as far as, like, they're not the quickest thing, but as far as driver and raw feeling and feedback, it's pretty cool. That's why, like, after that, I wanted a rotary. Like, I love rotaries. So, and then obviously the RX-8s were a rotary, but they're not. They're like
They're not
they're
the
not a
same.
real rotary.
Yeah.
You did pretty well in the RX.
I think the RX-8s get a lot of. I don't know if you guys have ever driven one just on the road or anything like that, or been in one, but they get a lot of hate. But they're a fantastic car to drive. They really are. Like, I would have one over an 86 any day of the week. They're quicker. They're quicker than an 86. They handle better. Everything about them, they do better.
No,
Because
sorry, I was going to say it's because every 86, especially up in Brisbane, they've all got friggin' Milo tin exhausts. They've got rear wings that are about 6 stories high. They've got like a
Yeah.
Timu looking style body kit on it, and it's just like every P plate is wet dream. Like, you hear one come past, all you hear is and it's doing like 20 k's down the road.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's got a bad. What is it? Stigma.
It's the rear wheel drive version of the Volkswagen Golf.
Yeah, that's right. But
I hate both of them with a
like, I would have never thought about owning an RX-8, but after driving them for a year, and the look, it does grow on you if they're done right. But as far as the chassis goes, they're awesome. Yeah, I rate them. They're cool.
Well, I grew up in New Zealand. It's like Mad Mike, those kind of rotaries are bloody everywhere. And
Yeah.
I mean, like, just the quad rotors and all that kind of stuff is just like,
Yeah,
makes me want to fall in love.
Because rotaries never really been a thing that's been massive in Australia, if you look at it. Like,
rotaries.
obviously, there's a lot of people. Obviously, like, there's a lot of people who own them, but like, there's never really been like a, how would you say? There's never really been like a scene.
No, but there is quite a big community. If you're in with the rotaries, like, it's like another world. I think it'd surprise you how many people are in.
I've known a few people over the years who have had them and like still have them to this day, but like, I'm just more talking. I'm more coming from the sense of like, well, from what I've seen personally, and like you would have seen it a bit too, like obviously because of the car meets you and I used to go to years ago, it was always more like it was either stupidly loud V8s or turbo 4 cylinders and stuff like that. But it was you'd rarely see a rotary come to stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying that they're not around, but I'm just saying, but it just
I see what you mean. I do agree with that.
They're not as public. They're not as public as what a lot of other people would be in their cars. But like, obviously it's out there. It's just hard to find.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You don't see them getting around to many car meets or cruising around. Like, I think they spend a lot of time in the shed. I've had mine for 2 years, and it hasn't seen the road yet.
Oh man!
So there you go. There's one that you know of that you'll never see on the road.
Yes,
but it's getting there. It's nearly there. Yeah, I just I want to get it done.
Don't ask. Yes,
There
How do
used
you
to
think
be
I
this
feel?
there used to be this thing like there used to be like a rotary wave when you're like driving along. How many fingers you put up when you wave to someone is how many Apex seals you've replaced recently.
No. I honestly, that's just the like that's not a thing. They're quite reliable. Like the RX8's ran all year, like used and never had a problem. And even our Bridgeport one and the RX7, we never had problems with it. If you look after them right, they're pretty cool. They're pretty reliable. They only have like 3 moving parts, so I think people don't really understand them. Like I bought mine as a rolling shell, because the kid who bought it owned it for a month, didn't realize you needed to premix it because it had the oil metering pump deleted. It didn't realize you had to premix it, and I think 2 tanks of fuel, and it killed the motor. And then he ripped the motor out and stripped it apart and couldn't do anything with it. So I just bought the car as a rolling shell. But kid lost like 20 grand in a month just because he just no.
Rookie
So
mistake.
Jeez.
I can see why they get a bad rap.
Just getting back on the racing real quick. Like obviously, like when Macro and I ran into you at Bathurst earlier this year, you were telling us how like you're going to be able to do like the full season of TA2 this year and whatnot. But and obviously TA2 eventually Trans Am itself will be what hopefully your next step is, and obviously what you mentioned was Super 2. Is there any like other series you think you might branch out to, maybe just as a one-off, or any events that you do want to do in the foreseeable future? Like anything, like maybe even something like the 6
Yeah.
hour?
Yep. Like, well, yeah. On the 6 hour, I'd love to do another one. I've done two Bathurst 6 hours just with the Pacini race team. So they run the BMWs. They have an A1. Like I ran with Paul Pacini, and then his daughter Carly, who has the all-girl team, who did really well this year. I think they won their class. So I've done the Bathurst 6 hour twice with them, which is great. I would jump at an offer if someone had a reasonable offer for me to drive one. But again, it costs a lot. But I would love to. There's the categories they're really thriving in Australia, but I'd love to drive a GT. That's hard to get in as a one-off because they're all racing the Enduro series. Legend car.
I
I'd
know
like
you
to
got
drive a
Dan's
Legend
attention.
car. I'd like to. I know TFH own them now. If we can get a driver one of those for a decent sort of go, then we might do that. I'm a driver. I'll drive anything. I want to drive anything, regardless. Like if someone throws me the keys to something, I'll drive it. But there's so many things out there I want to drive, and like I mentioned before, the Porsche series is cool. But Aussie cars, legend cars, they're all sort of stuff that I'd be interested in driving. Another thing we looked at was the super utes, just to get involved in that supercar scene. But when we weighed all of that up, it was a bit like at the end of the day, you're driving around the dual cab ute. It's like it was hard. It's hard to convince yourself that that's going to be fun.
The cost of those have gone up like quite significantly this year, like
Yeah.
25% more expensive or something like that. It's fun that crazy.
I'm pretty sure you can run a GA2 car for the same cost, if not cheaper.
I'll say one thing I noticed
Again-
about Super Utes though. Sorry, I was gonna say one thing I noticed about Super Utes though is like I sat in one a couple of years ago down at the Gold Coast because it was around where their cars were parked, and actually I can't remember whose car it was. I sat in it and I was just, even without the helmet and the harness device, I'm like, how the hell do they see out of these things? Like it was insane. And you'd think for a ute, you think, oh yeah, any visibility. Like, bloody hell, like you can't even.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty much a sports sedan now, like, you know, not comparative to a road going one. But I did work experience at Rothstone Racing when I was still in school and I did my 2 weeks work experience. I did it at Rothstone's shop there when they were first building the Super Utes. So they just had them in, and they were still diesel and they hadn't finished them yet. But they got me doing all of the dry ice and like scraping the sound deadener out of them all. So I was doing that for like days straight. I was like, that was not fun, but it was cool. I mean, Because a lot of those are
That'd
still
be-
the same cars getting around now.
And I guess that's another thing too with like a lot of the lower level racing. Like obviously it does happen in supercars, but you'll see a lot of like the cars in the lower levels, like they'll be racing for so long. Like obviously like supercars will build maybe have a new chassis each year or run it for like 1 or 2 years and then palm it off to someone else. But it is cool to see cars that in lower level racing still around several years
Yeah.
down the track.
I love seeing those old supercars getting restored and driven. I'd love to go to what's the festival they do in Adelaide?
Adelaide
Is it the
Motorsport
Motor
Yeah,
Festival
Adelaide
there?
Motorsport Festival.
Yeah. I'd love to go to that one year just to see some of the cars going around there. Like, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, it keeps getting better each year. It really does feel like Goodwood, like our version. It just keeps getting better.
Yeah. No, it looks like it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's because I think, I'm just trying to think, because was it last year before, we started getting, Mika Hakkinen, or actually we had him this year, but like David Coulthard, Gunter Steiner, all those, Damon Hill as well, and then all the classic, we've got more Formula One cars and more V8s. Obviously, unfortunately, because it was raining, we didn't get to see a lot of those, because we were meant to have Craig Lowndes and Jamie Whincup in their 2010 VE Commodores out on track together. It's just moments like that. It's really, really cool, but we didn't get to see that this time around. So hopefully next year we see that. But it's so cool.
Sounds like we'll have to fly down there, Macca. Do some coverage for three boys together.
You got some.
I know a
some
good
room at your
sim center
place?
you guys can check out.
Oh yeah,
So I know a good
I was
sim
gonna
center
say-
you can check out.
I was gonna
Yeah, self plug.
That looks like it's going well.
It is. No, it's a lot of fun. It's you lose time there very quickly. I haven't driven so much virtually in a week. Like just spend all day sim racing, come back. I'm like, I'm a bit tired of racing.
Yeah.
I guess getting back on track. We're obviously talking about the Adelaide Motor Festival, and obviously you're saying all those old school V8 supercars. Like, I guess, was there any kind of V8 supercar growing up, or even a couple of them that were kind of iconic for you, or like your favorite?
Yeah. There's a few I remember specifically. Obviously, the Vodafone cars probably were my favorite. I think when they went to VE, there's so many cool cars. I remember the Jason Bright BOC car a lot. I don't know, there's a few cars that stand out, but all of those, that's when they went to the first car of the future, wasn't it? The VE was the first car of the future.
VF.
Yeah.
VF.
Those are the
VF.
last
VE
of
was-
the blueprint cars. I
VE
think.
was the last of
They're still the
cars.
blueprint. Yeah. There was a lot of talk when they went to Car of the Future. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I think if I ever got the opportunity to drive, even like a Super 2 now or whatever, I would, even if it's just for a test day, just to say that I've driven a supercar, like, that's all I really want. Like, yeah, I'd love to race on it, but I can say that I've driven one, yeah. Like, and older the better in my eyes. So
Oh, 100%.
I'd like to drive, yeah. The blueprint and the first car of the future, they appeal a lot more to me than the Gen 3 car.
Kind
I
of
was
makes
gonna
me
say, was
feel
that-
old. The fact that you're saying that the VE is old.
Well,
makes me-
no, it's
It's
just that I
just like
remember.
But yeah,
I was gonna
it's
say-
just I'm in my 30s now. And like, I'm sort of like
Yeah.
assuming old is like the late 90s, early 2000s, and yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
same.
I was 7 when
But-
the VE was introduced.
Shut up. Shut up. I was out of high school when the Car of the Future came in. That was my first year out of high school.
I wasn't even in high school. I was a year off from it.
That was my first year out of high school. Yeah,
I was gonna say, was that just a question for Brock, or can we answer that too? What
I
cars?
guess we can all answer it. Why not?
Yeah. I was gonna say cars that stood out to me specifically. I'm gonna go back even older, and I'm gonna say the HRT Golden Child, Mark Scaife, 2001, 2002. Dual Series winner and dual Bathurst winner. I think one of the only chassis to do that in the sport. Gonna go a bit Kiwi bias for here for you, Macca. The Kmart Commodore from 03 and 04, especially the lap of the Gods Car. Then the Spider-Man livery one was sick. I don't know why, but one car that really always stood out to me, and I remember as well, even though I grew up as a diehard Ford fan, not Ford, Holden fan. Yeah, my family just owned me.
Whoa.
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 Really stirring up the Ford
that's-
face tonight, aren't we?
That just came out, didn't it?
There's something sprung. Been hiding that a lie in for so long. No,
Now that's an article.
honestly,
Congrats, you came
shut
out.
up. No, growing up as a diehard Holden fan in the early 2000s era supercars, but one that always stood out to me, I think because of the fact that they were the ones who knocked HRT off their perch, was the Stone Brothers Falcons. Like when they had their dominance, like when Ambrose won his championships and then Russell Ingall finally won his, especially the 05 Caltex car. And there's actually a bit of a story to that car as well for me personally. So at where I work, when I was working down towards the Gold Coast way, you obviously know where Matt Stone Racing is, don't you, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah. The company I still work for now. When I was based down towards that way, one of the customers we had for that particular store was actually places like Dick Johnson Racing and Matt Stone Racing. And I had to do a delivery one day to Matt Stone Racing, and I walked in there and I couldn't find anyone. I yelled out. Then who pops his head up from under a car around the corner was actually Jimmy Stone, of all people.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Oh, g'day, mate." And the thing is, was quite funny because he was a bit chuffed that I actually recognised who he was. Because like everyone else had obviously I was on a break or they'd gone home because it was 2:00 on a Friday afternoon from memory. And I was just like, "Oh, so what are you up to?" And he's just like, "Oh, I'm actually building our first Gen 3 chassis. Do you want to come have a look?" He actually invited me into Matt Stone Racing's workshop, and he was showing me Jack LeBrock's first Gen 3 chassis.
That's cool.
Talking to him about the car and whatnot. We're talking about the cars and whatnot, and I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Yeah, Gen 3s should be right." And then he's like, "Oh, have a quick look around if you want before you go." And I was like, "Oh yeah, cool." And they had some like old race suits, and I think they had stuff from when they won Bathurst in 1998 still sitting there. And then there was a Pertec Falcon, I think Jason Bright had driven in the late 90s or the early 2000s before Ambrose came along. Then I was like panned around. Out of the corner of my eye, sitting in the corner of the workshop, was this half-covered supercar, and I walked up to it, and it was the 2005 championship winning car, Russell Ingall's Caltex Falcon, and it was like about 90% complete at that stage. That's when they were doing the Resto project on it.
Yeah.
I was
I
just like,
remember they
"Oh."
did that.
Yeah, and I was like, "Man, that's so sick." And like, and I had a look at the car. I quickly had a quick look over the car, but obviously didn't touch it or anything, but then compared it quickly to like what was the Gen 3 car. I'm just like, holy hell, there's so much difference now compared to what we had back then. But I know out of the two of them, I'd definitely pick the Blueprint era car.
Well, they were still a car, you know, still a chassis,
They'll still resemble
production
most
car.
of a car.
Yeah, that's right.
What about you, Dan?
I mean, I agree with Brock I agree with all of you, you know, with the HRT Gold Child, the Kmart, the Vodafone, but even though it wasn't as successful, the Rockstar HRT car,
Stop it.
2011, 2012, like that was just beautiful to look at, especially with the golden rims too. I'm pretty sure it had golden rims as well.
No, golden rims was the year after, 2012.
Oh, yeah, there you go. 2012 was a peak year.
No, it's actually, you might be right. So I think it was Rockstar from 2011 to 2012. So one year had silver, the other one had gold.
Yeah, no, it just, I loved it.
I just want to hear what Macca's answer is. I think I know what he's going to say, but
I'm going to say 3 because if I just say 1, it's going to be pretty obvious. Life of the Gods Commodore, number 1. Because
yeah, I knew that was on the list.
mean, come on.
I knew that was on the list.
What a piece of art, you know, even because I believe it was the same chassis that won in 04 as well, the Spider-Man livery, so I'm going to count that.
Yeah, it's a model.
Yeah, the Green-Eyed Monster, I reckon that's still one of the best looking liveries of all time. Anyone that can make an AU Falcon look good deserves like a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think the 2012 Vodafone car, I think that Dayglow red and the black accents and everything, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that was a good looking car. I think but one of the best,
there's so many different liveries.
I think one of the best looking cars of all time.
DJR.
One of the best looking cars of all time, 1999 HRT Commodore.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And then they went to full red in 2000. They went from that to that. I still didn't like. But yeah, it was just, that's an iconic one.
I actually didn't mind the 2000 livery. At first, I wasn't a fan of it because I was only like 5 years old at the time when that car was around. But as the years go by and I look back and I'm like, that livery kind of grows on me.
Sure, Dan and Brock weren't even born.
I was born in 2000.
Jesus. Here we are, like frothing over a car that was way before his time. Like,
Yeah, but you
We
like
did- we
grow
just-
up watching like replays of it, over and over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like watching it live, but we've seen it all. And I really wish that like I could have had the opportunity to race in the stuff from 20 years ago. Like, feel like I missed like a cool, a really special window of like supercar racing that I'll never get to experience. And I
Oh.
think that's what the dream of driving one growing up was because of that. Like, if I was like back, 15, 20 years now, but looking at the cars that are driven today, would I still be as keen to drive something like that? I don't know. Maybe. Interesting.
I guess
Well, I guess it's-
Trans Am sort of has that feeling of the OG. He's like because you got privateers as well, like yourself, against like Top Guns and stuff. Supercars lost that over time as it got more expensive. So in a way,
Yes.
I think Trans Am is bringing that back.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny you say that because, like, you say, I guess we are like a privateer team now, which is cool. It's cool that you recognize like that as well and have good results. But back probably even just a few years, everyone was doing it like that. But now you have 4-car teams, data sharing, and then we're just like, yeah, well, we'll try this, see how it works. It's cool. It's definitely rewarding.
Oh, it would be. And also too, like I'll agree to that point of like T8, TA2 Trans Am has now got that old school vibe of what supercars was probably back in the early 2000s. Because if you look at it's a good thing considering the class of the supercars field now, because you can't really call anyone a privateer. I think the only team you can really class as maybe a privateer, even though there's still quite a good big budget, is like the only closest thing now we've probably got is Blanchard Racing.
Yeah.
But even then, it wouldn't be.
Or
It's
the
not
way
the same.
the way Erebus is tracking, they're back. I feel like they had like this golden, like they had everything going for them. Now it's like back 10 years. Like,
Yeah, back to privateer.
yeah, like that's literally what it looks like.
Which is a shame though, because I was actually quite happy for Erebus when they won in 2023.
Yeah,
Come to think of it,
that issue?
Erebus is essentially the Aston Martin of supercars at the moment. It's owned by a billionaire and sitting at the back of the grid.
Yeah, good point. That's a good point.
So what, next round in Simmons Plains, you're just going to see Joe Stewart just driving down the back straight going dun, 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 dun. Wheels
It
fall
could
off it
happen.
like.
It's Erebus. It genuinely can happen. He's had a shocking start to his season.
So I guess like one thing that's been quite big news, I guess, with TA2 is like there's been some pretty big sponsors come in. Like Todd Hazelwood's got like 4 and 20. It's quite good that these brands that are, I guess, outside the automotive ecosystem. So I guess like if any sponsor out of any company in the world came to you, like, well, who would you want knocking on your door?
I think people have already got all the good sponsors, like the big main sponsors. That's hard. You got to try and like this is something that we think about every day, like because you have to keep reaching out to people. Call a million people, email a million people. But I don't know what would be the dream sponsor. Anyone that has money, we need it.
Anyone who's gonna. Mac has got $50.
Well,
and
Mac has got
post-round
$50.
dumps.
Yeah. But people don't, I think, understand like the cost that goes in even just to running a 202 car, especially someone with no sort of knowledge of motorsport. So like you tell people this costs this much and it's like, no, it doesn't. I can buy it down here for this price. And it's like, well, no, everything has to be purchased through one. Everything's serial numbered. Everything's put into the system. You can't buy anything for the car outside of the distributor for them. It's good in a way, but I think the benefit, like you said, of these other drivers bringing good sponsors in is that it helps other sponsors, like what would you call it, like a credential of like, well, these guys are, this company's doing it, well, why wouldn't we? So it's helpful, especially I think the Super Series and even what's the Motorsport Australia series called?
Speed Series?
Speed Series, yeah, Speed Series. I think both of those have really, they've both really improved their coverage of events. which is the biggest way we can get sponsors on board. You know, like you can explain everything to a sponsor and it all might sound great, but if there's no TV involved, regardless if they get any benefit from the TV, you know, they might not even be on TV. But just the idea of having TV there is a massive draw card for a small team to bring sponsors on board. And I wouldn't have half the sponsors that I have now if, you know, the broadcast wasn't as good as what it is. So hopefully we can get a bigger name sponsor on board. I'm open to anyone. So I think you got to resource sponsors that aren't that rung up every day. Like you ring an energy drink company, they've had 1,000 people call them asking for the same thing. So
yeah, it's a competitive
so-
industry, and I've talked to a couple other drivers just casually in the past about in different disciplines, and I guess like sponsorship just gets so competitive now, and I guess with a lot of series, the cost is increasing, so they're asking you for more money. And that's what, yeah, as you said, TV rights are so important now, and I guess it's good to see like these the high tech oil series and the super series and all that. The level of quality and the TV coverage has stepped up significantly, because I remember like I think it must have been the previous deal they had was, to be honest, pretty average, but they've stepped it up recently, and honestly, if they keep going in this trajectory, it probably could be on the same level as supercars in terms of the quality of production, but with better graphics.
yeah, like
Yeah,
there's no reason like it can't be. Like I don't know why more people don't watch it. Like, you know, it feels like I remember watching supercars even when I was a bit younger, but I was like, okay, the main game was cool, but I wanted to see the touring car masters. I wanted to see the Aussie cars. I wanted to see the V8 Utes. Those were like almost more of a draw card that I wanted to watch than the main game, because they're short sprint races. People got their elbows out. People drive hard, like the Porsche, the early Cup series when they were still sequential. All those categories are almost more appealing to me than the main game, and this is what the Super Series reminds me of: just having good hard racing categories all together. I don't know whether it's that maybe the new sort of generation might be more interested in this type of racing as well, as opposed to like we mentioned before, but just the Australian guy that just cares about Ford and Holden and just wants his supercar racing and doesn't care about anything that's not supercars. So I think that's a lot less of now, but hopefully it keeps gaining traction.
you're always going to get those like mouth breathers who are going to whinge about supercars no longer being on free to air, which it hasn't been for over 10 years. And how they
I
want
still see comments.
Yeah, bring back production car racing, the Bathurst, bring back Group C, bring back this. It's like you've literally got so much grassroots level racing, and you've got the Bathurst 6 hour, for God's sake. Like you've got all the stuff you're demanding there, and it's on free to air. Like it is out there, but no, it's not. Well, I just well, they can't say that they want to watch and just whinge about Mark Scaife anymore. Like
Yeah, that's right.
just whinge about Chad Nalon now.
No, you're right.
Like, just one final question for myself, and I don't know if the others want to ask anything, but obviously, because I've known you for a couple of years now, and I've like been watching your journey so far, and it has been pretty cool to watch. And hopefully, you can get to that next step. But for anyone, like this is just my question to you: for anyone who is looking at wanting to pursue a career in motorsport, whether they're just coming through the ranks currently or just starting out, what advice, given your experience so far, what advice would you give to someone like from what you've learned so far?
Great question. I suppose just that you get a long way by just talking to people and getting your name out there and speaking to teams and speaking to sponsors. And even if nothing comes from it, keep doing it, because it's sort of making it, you're just like weaving a connection in the background. So even if you might not think you're getting anywhere, keep at it, because that's what we were at the point of, like I said, sort of reached a dead end. Talked to a few people and they said, go and do this, organize the drive in this. We did one race in this, and it sort of took off from there. So, and you'll find that I think you'll have that sort of breakthrough sort of race or series in that you do, and you do really well at, and it sort of picks up from there. Just sort of stay persistent with it, because it's quite an easy sport to give up when, you got a lot of people competing for the same seat, and a lot of people with more money than you, and a lot of people that know more people than you, and you can sometimes feel like you're going to get nowhere. But I think that it's pretty, for what we're doing at this point, especially as a family-run team doing literally everything ourselves. So I reckon, just stay at it, and you never know what can be around the corner. Because if you'd have told me 2 years ago that I'd be like competitively racing in the TA2 series, I'd say, well, that's not going to happen. But I had a few people around me that didn't give up, and now look. So stay stay persistent, and you never know what can happen. But it's hard. It's not an easy sport. Some people don't like to call it a sport, but I think it's a sport.
No, it is. Definitely is.
Educational.
Nah, well,
Maturity on this guy is insane. Like, I don't even think I'm that mature.
Mate,
I'm definitely not that
I
mature.
gotta step your professional level of your podcast up. Well, I do get asked a question a lot. Like when I was saying before about reflecting on actually just appreciating what you're doing. I think that's important, and I think about it a lot. You don't want to be that arrogant guy that no one likes. So, you gotta have some personality and, relate to
be it.
people at a level. Yeah, that's right. I think you get so many people up there putting on a show, or even like you're just a race car driver. They want to be treated like, it's like oh, I don't want to walk around here, or go and hide in your truck between sessions. Like, I don't know, just like enjoy it, get out there. But like, take it seriously. People get, I think, annoyed at me if I'm not happy with, a session that I've done or something like that, because I'm not smiling and I'm not happy about it. But, you take the gear off, you cool off for 5 minutes, and you come back and talk about it, and you improve. It's not a matter of being that you're not enjoying it, or if you don't hop out of the car smiling, people think, oh, just enjoy it, mate, or just have fun. But you're competing against people, and we're doing it because we want to win. So you always got to have that level of competitiveness about you. But deep down, you got to enjoy it too.
I reckon that was a good question. I don't have any more questions.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
I'm just stumped by his wisdom. We should start calling him Brock the Wise.
Yeah.
Nah, we should.
Mate, if you need a fourth on the podcast, I'll join in.
Mate, we'll happily have you back on any time. But yeah, that's why I said
Yeah.
that's why we asked you. Did you want to come on? Because obviously, like, you've done some, like, I'll just say this from what I've seen and what I've known for the last couple of years about you, but you've done some really cool things in motorsport so far, and it has been pretty cool to watch. So, and
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
that's any time, dude. And like, I think Macca, even you said something to me after we went and spoke to him at Bathurst. He seemed quite
Oh,
impressed.
for sure, yeah. Because I didn't really, to be honest, I didn't really know about you till I'd met Stephen, and Stephen's like, watch out for this guy, Yeah, I was kind of impressed, like, you're super wise, like full on Jedi spec. But no, but just yeah, like, like you clearly tell just by the way, the body language of the car and things like that, there's definitely potential there. And yeah, I don't like to say this often, but I think Stephen was right there.
So you got to give me credit sometimes, mate.
Yeah. Only sometimes though.
Saying, obviously, Dan, you both were involved with Formula RX-8 at the same time. So
yeah, no, he was the one to beat. Brock, you were the one all year, the one to match, and every time we would see you out there out on track, I just knew that. I think I said to you, Feven, Brock is, if budget wasn't a thing, he is supercar worthy. And I still stand by that. And because the things you did in that RX-8 season was pretty cool, and then the fact that you jumped to TA2 made it even better.
Yeah, I think it's just a learning about not just the driving, but everything in TA2. So it was cool. We've had a few race wins in TA2, so I know that on the day that I'm capable of winning. Which, as soon as you don't believe that, then you're not going to win.
Mm.
So because you'd like to hope that every driver driving out of the pits believes they can win it. So you want 25 drivers that want to win the race, and you're going to have good racing. So,
No,
but
for
you got to
sure.
have that mentality. But no, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
No, anytime, dude.
No,
Like,
thank you for coming on.
yeah. And for anyone listening, for anyone who's not following this guy, go give him a follow. What is it? Brock Paine Racing, isn't it, on socials?
Yeah, I got Brock Paine Racing on Facebook and just Brock Paine 30. Yeah, it all helps. We're trying to chase. If someone knows, it's all about word of mouth. Someone knows someone who knows this, and you might end up with a small sponsor from it. But it all helps us, and especially a family-run budget team. Like any dollar, any sponsor, promotional, everything helps us. So no, we appreciate it.
That was probably why we wanted to get you on the show too. Was just like, obviously we're not a big like show ourselves, because obviously we're just starting out, and we're just doing this for fun. Like, obviously we're not getting anything from it apart from just enjoyment and just chatting to random people. But like, obviously people like yourself, like, because you like one thing I will give you credit for is like how approachable you are. Like, I remember like when we saw each other at Bathurst, that's the first time, obviously we'd spoken here and there, but that's the first time I'd seen you in about 2 or 3 years. But
Yeah.
the personality wise, like I will give you credit because you've got that trait of just like, you kind of pick up where you leave off with people, and I think that's really important. Is like, I think in that scene, I think that's probably a good quality, and like, because like you said, you don't want to be like the driver who like just comes across as up themselves or whatnot. Like, you're happy to talk to people who are following you or whatnot, and like, obviously that's it.
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah. Like if one person comes over to me and says like, oh, oh, I remember you from here, or you're doing well, or whatever like this. Like, I appreciate everything. Like, it's a cool feeling. And also you got to be approachable for sponsors. Sponsors, you'll find a lot of the time the sponsors aren't backing you because they want exposure. They're not getting like anything out of it, but they go, all right, you're a good kid, we'll help you out. So
Yeah.
you come across, as approachable and stuff like that, and it helps with sponsors and securing them. And I feel guilty sometimes because I'm like, you're like, why, like, you're not, are we promoting you enough or stuff like that? And it's tricky because driving is such a small percentage of motorsport. You pretty much got to be full on media, promote yourself. And if you're not doing media, and if you're not posting reels, and if you're not constantly on social media, then you're sort of nowhere. Like, it sucks to a certain level because it's like, I just want to drive the car, but you got to do all this other stuff.
Well put, well put. Yeah. Well, I think it's been, as I say, I just noticed that the second chat we're doing now has gone for like just under 90 minutes, and I think the first part of this long chat was about half an hour. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, mate.
no,
That's all
that's
good.
fine, because like there's a couple of our episodes where we just chat for so long about random stuff, and that's actually one thing that people, you and I, have been told this back. I don't know what you've heard, Dan, but some people have come back and said that's what they like about what we do here, even though, like I said, we're just a small show compared to a lot of other things out there. It's because we don't really push an agenda or anything. We're just here chatting about something we love. And
Well, that was the whole thing about this pod. Is just we just wanted to shit talk about it, and that's what we're doing, and it's fun.
we're not towing a company line or anything, because we're just talking and just sharing our opinions, or just sharing our love for something that plays a part in our lives.
Yeah.
It's cool to see so many little pods coming through as well. Like, I love them. I've done a couple with a few other people, but I like it. Whether, you always joke about, starting something with your mates, like, whatever, but it's what people are doing now, and I think it's cool.
I agree. Because I guess, like, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be running the media for AU4. It's pretty, like, it goes back to what you were saying as a driver, doing all these cool things and just looking back as me as well. Like, a couple of years ago, I didn't think I'd be traveling around the country. So it's pretty,
Yeah,
you never know what happens. You never say no to things.
exactly.
Yeah. Just one thing. Every time I look at Macca's side of the screen, all I can see is the reflection of the friggin' Motorsport Moshpit sticker. Like, it's even blinding me from here.
Grant Dan, you're approved.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Okay.
Thanks for having
No,
me
good
on,
chat,
guys.
fellas.
Appreciate it.
No, thanks for
No,
coming on.
thanks for coming.
We'll happily have you back anytime, and who knows, we'll have to discuss where we can be the fourth.
Yeah. I mean, let me know.
Maybe if Dan goes on another milk trip, might have to replace him with that.
Hey, at least I came back with the milk. Not many people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At least I came back.
deja vu.
Yeah.
Who wants to
Do
do
you
the
want to take
close?
us home, Stephen?
I reckon Dan, because he's been away for a few weeks. You can close
Yeah,
it
that's
out,
a good
Dan.
point.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Take
Let
us
me
home.
dust the cobwebs.
Your first night back on the job, even though you're not getting paid, but you're doing what we say.
Yeah, I know. I
He
thought I
got
was
the
here to
milk.
drink my milk, and I've been told to do things. No. First, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Brock, for coming on in this chat. It's great to have you in chatting with us. You're great talent. Can't wait to see what you do in TA2 and moving forward. Thanks everyone for watching. If you did be sure to like and subscribe and follow if you're on Spotify or whatever. Follow our social media as well. And I guess we'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully I will be there with milk. But yeah, of course, thanks Macca and Feven for joining me always. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Motorsport Moshpit.
Thanks, guys.
Did I do a good job?